News will kicks off rather at 6 o'clock East Coast time. On the House side, these are the margins right now. 218 for a simple majority. Dems have it slightly at 220. Republicans are chasing at 212. Here are your key indicators early in the night. And frankly, Dana, I could point to 10 or 12 or 20 or 30 early indicators. I'll just give you a few basic ones. Virginia's been talked about so much. These are the key races. You're going to see later tonight in prime time. The reason we have selected these races and consider them key is because either A, they're a toss-up, or B, they have Republican or Democratic leaders running for re-election in those seats. 3 in Virginia. Watch those very carefully. One area, though, that you may not. Virginia closes at 7 o'clock, and so does the entire state of Indiana by 7 o'clock. There's a district in northwestern Indiana here, District 1. It's a Democratic district, but watch the margins. Republicans really like their candidate. We're going to get an early indication as to whether or not there is strength there for the Republican Party on a night like tonight, or whether or not Democrats are holding the room. And clearly, without question, whether it's House races, governor race, or Senate race, the state of Florida holds a ton of drama tonight. Those are all the key races on the board, and we'll see which way they break. Florida does not close officially. Take a walk back over here, Jimmy, until 8 o'clock because the Panhandle closes late. But during that 7 o'clock hour, with Florida counting so quickly, Dana, we're going to get some indication from those House races as to how they're going early in the night.
Well, someone who knows a lot about Florida closing in the Panhandle an hour later is Karl Rove.
I'm going back 2000. Back machine.
PTSD.
Get me out quickly.
You know that Mindy Tucker says she remembers that phone call from you saying the polls stay open until 8 o'clock.
Exactly.
It's good to have you. Hey, so what do you look at on a day like today that those of viewers at home should pay attention to?
Well, I'm sort of with Bill. I'm looking at the early results in Indiana, Kentucky, Virginia, comparing what they are today to what they were 2 years ago to begin to get a sense of how big the swing is from the Democrats in 2020 to the Republicans in 2022. So I'm spending a lot of time in the early ones taking a look at comparing, like early vote in Pennsylvania by county, early vote in those 3 districts in Virginia, 2, 7, and 10. The early, how the vote is coming in Indiana 1. But I'm also looking at the rest of Indiana and the rest of Kentucky, which a lot of those come in at 6 o'clock. So even though they're not competitive races, except Indiana 1 that reports at 7, I'm starting to look at 6 o'clock in these non-competitive races. How do the results compare to 2 years ago?
So you're looking at percentages, is there Republican strength or weakness? Is there Democratic strength or weakness?
Correct.
I just had the billboard. You got the whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Care to share?
Let's step back for just a minute.
Yes.
What's important here at the last that we don't have a good sense of from the returns until we get everything in. And what's going on now is the independent and swing voters who are still up for grabs are making a decision. Am I going to vote or not? And then if I'm going to vote, who am I voting for? So look at the final messages of each party's candidates. The Republicans are emphasizing the economy, crime, inflation. And according to a new ABC Washington Post poll, the Republicans have an advantage on the economy of 14 points. People view them as better able to handle the economy than the Democrats by 14 points. 20 points on crime, 12 points on inflation. Interesting to me, threat to democracy, the Democrats have only a 3-point advantage. It's a reminder that if you say our democracy is at stake, some people look at that on the center and the right and say, well, one-party government isn't helpful, or going too far to the left is unhelpful, or doing things like giving away $500 billion in student loan forgiveness without a vote of the Congress is a threat to our democracy. So the Democrats don't have a big advantage on it. They do have a 13-point advantage on being the party better able to deal with abortion, but Gallup says only 4% consider that to be the most important issue. So as we go into these final hours, as people are literally showing up to vote, they have to. The key voters today and yesterday are going to be the people who are up for grabs, who either are weakly linked to their choice or haven't made up their mind. First decision is, do I vote? But the second decision is, who do I vote for? And the closing arguments for the Republicans, strikes me, are better.
We're looking at John Fetterman there, of course, the Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, who's running against Dr. Oz. So you heard what Brian Yanis was reporting in regards to this lawsuit that Fetterman has filed against, I guess it's at the state Supreme Court, who basically says that you cannot count ballots that are not dated properly, not signed properly, and they're already going to court to fight that?
Well, for full disclosure, I helped found an organization called Right that is supporting the lawsuit that brought this about. In essence, the state election authorities gave advice to the locals saying, we don't care what the state law says. If a ballot is not filled out properly, you are obligated to tell them that it's not filled out properly, the voter, and they have a chance to cure it or clean it up.
Right.
But you ought to count those. And we went to court, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said the law is the law, and if you fill out the ballot incorrectly, it ought to be set aside and not counted. So what Fetterman is attempting to do is say, I don't care what the state law says. I don't care what the requirements are for a legitimate ballot. Anything that comes in, as long as it's received postmarked by Election Day, ought to be counted. Supreme Court has heretofore said, no, we're going to require the law to be upheld, because the law also says if that ballot is filled out improperly, the local election authorities have to alert the voter that you made a mistake, and you can come in and either invalidate that and vote in person, or you can clean up your ballot before Election Day and we'll count it. So with Fetterman, I noticed this morning the headlines in the newspapers were, trying to count every ballot. No. What he's trying to do is say the state law regarding filling out ballots, absent or mail-in ballots, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And the law should matter. That's what gives us confidence, is when people follow the rules.
I wish we had you for 20 minutes. Early voting in 2018, the last midterm was 40 million. This year, I think as of earlier this morning, we're well above 44 million. So there is an increase.
Yeah.
I think we can debate whether or not that's a significant increase.
Well, but also remember different conditions, because between 2018 and 2022, a lot of states moved to a more mail-in ballot early voting procedure. Some states already had it in place, but elongated it. For example, Texas and Georgia lengthened the period of time to vote early, but new states started saying, okay, we're going to put more of an emphasis on mail-in ballots.
Can you characterize this in one word? Is this a strong turnout, a mild turnout, or can we say that yet?
We can't say that yet. We've got to look at the totality of turnout. Okay. Now, I will say in Texas, where we have a long tradition of having roughly, approaching 2/3 of the vote in early, because we have a very robust, early vote and mail-in ballot program, that it's below what it's on a trajectory to be numerically larger than 28, but percentage-wise smaller.
Understood. Rest your voice. You got a long day.
It'll be fun to be with you tonight, starting at 6 p.m. for special coverage. Thank you, Carl.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Great
World
to see
Series.
you. Thank you so much.